Adam, we'll start with you since you're not on mute. Tell us a little bit about yourself, your background. A lot of people don't necessarily know you're from Richmond originally, so tell us a little bit about your background.
Yeah, that's true. I think a lot of people don't know I'm from Richmond, and then if I forget to tell people because I assume they know. But like you say, I was born in Richmond. I lived here until I was 17. And I went to RTA through 5th grade. And then I went for high school. I went to the governor's school. I left Richmond in 2005 to go to Ohio State. My reasons for going there were innocent, not so well thought out, but it was very fun. I went, and that's why I went there.
Right.
I went for fun and football. And then I could always tell if people are college football fans when they ask me if I played football or if I just wanted to watch, because clearly they don't know anything about Ohio State's football team or my athletic prowess or lack thereof. But
I'm from Pennsylvania. I'm a Penn State guy, so we're not going to talk about it too much. You went to
right?
Oh yeah. So,
I'm also from Pennsylvania.
But I don't know. What's that, Thea?
I'm also from Pennsylvania and also a Penn State fan.
Wow, there you go. Okay, look at that. See, we're
must be tough.
Each other. So it's been rough for a little bit, but there are some other Buckeyes in the shul. The ones that come to mind are David Glazer, I think, and
that's right.
And I think Mrs. Ruby, and I think Adrian Epstein as well. There might be some others, but there are some Buckeyes.
Yeah. Well, there's about 600,000 living alumni, so it's not surprising.
There you go. Then eventually you got to Israel, right?
Yeah, right after Ohio State, I went to Israel. I was planning on being there for 1 year. I ended up being there for a little over 7. I learned in yeshiva for off and on for most of those years. I was in the Army for a year.
So what was that like? What was it like being in the Army? You remember basic training? Was it not that hard for I happen to know you can tell people what you did in the Army. What was that?
So yeah, I mean, for people who are unfamiliar with Army basic training, at least in Israel, it goes, the basic training is ranked in difficulty from FSFS, which is 00, all the way to 13. 13 being basic training for like special forces and things like that. And 00, I think I didn't actually ever meet anybody that did FSFS, but I believe it's for conscientious objectors who,
that's interesting.
So they don't handle weaponry. I think that's what it is. And I did the standard basic training for all non-combat people. Okay. So that's FS time 02.
Was it a good experience being in the Army?
Yeah, it wasn't so bad. I mean, at least I was actually, my wife and I got engaged right before I went in.
Oh, wow. That must have been hard.
And I had actually already signed up before he even met my wife to do 4 years. And I would 2 of those years would be a degree in some sort of aviation instruction. I'm not exactly sure what it was supposed to be, but the job was basically training pilots on how to maintain and operate their cockpit.
Wow.
And that was a 4-year obligation. And then when I met my wife, that was not really an option, but I technically was already obligated. So I basically had to go in and like beg them and daven not to make me do what I had already promised to do.
Okay.
And it worked. And I had a friend who was a sofer scribe in the Army. He described the job as a good one.
Okay.
So I begged for it, and I was very fortunate. And
that's
I got
cool.
It.
Very cool. So Thea, let's tell everybody here a little bit about your background and, well, how did you get to Israel now that we covered where you guys met? A little bit about your background, where you're from, and what you do. You're doing something a little bit connected to healthcare, right? Or you have a background in healthcare?
Yeah, so I grew up in Pennsylvania, and then I moved out to San Diego, California for college, where I met an outreach family on campus and ended up in Israel learning in a seminary in Neve. And then and I met Adam at the end of my time at Neve, and then we ended up staying in Israel for another 4 years before moving back to Canada. And 1 year stint in Canada, and then here we are in Richmond.
Now, was that like a matchmaker situation, or did you guys just meet?
No, we had a matchmaker.
Okay.
Yeah.
And when you say back to Canada, does that mean you had spent some time there previously?
No, I just meant
North
back
America.
to this continent.
Yeah. So, Adam, you're the first person we're having on this show who went to RTA and is a native Richmonder. Now you're a parent at RTA. What is that like to see your kids go to the same institution that you went to?
It's a little bit surreal. I think that I don't think I ever thought I would be back in Richmond. Not that I was running away from Richmond. I thought Richmond was fine, but I never anticipated that we would be back here. But I guess at some point you realize that, I guess that you're always trying to go back to your source, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like the fire is always going up and water's always flowing down, and I'm always going back to Richmond.
Okay. Well, and the name of your school is Richmond. We should tell, but you're a U of R law student. So
that's right. Almost.
So, Thea, you all moved to Richmond from Canada. What's the difference you would say between those two types of cities and communities, countries, environments, etc.?
A huge difference. So we were in Toronto, and Toronto is a massive Jewish community. Sorry.
That's okay. We like children.
Massive. So yeah, Toronto was a massive Jewish community.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna let you answer this.
Okay, there you go. A team effort.
Yeah, it's a big community.
Well, I have to ask you, Adam, do you know what Thea's going to say?
I think so. She's going to say that I could hear the baby from video. She's going to say that Toronto obviously is a very big community. Yeah. It has a lot of infrastructure. I think that there is definitely much less room for individuality there. I think that every little slice of life has the way it does things, and there's enough variety there for sure that more or less you can find your lane. But in terms of sort of like in a community just sort of accepting you facially for who you are, much less so there. Also, I think one of the big differences is that the Jewish community in Toronto was integral to building the city, right? From the very beginning of the city, Jews were a part of the actual building of the buildings and everything.
Right.
And so I think the ties there are a different kind of tie. I mean, our community's been here for a long time too.
Yeah, the Richmond community used to be one of the top 5 largest Jewish communities many years ago. But you're right, not a part of the original founders to the same extent, it sounds like. And I know a lot of survivors in Toronto and a lot of European Jews living there. So, Adam, what is one thing about being a scribe that maybe people don't realize? What do you think would be particular interest to our viewers to learn about Sophros and what that's like as a discipline or as a profession?
Well, I think first of all, it's probably appropriate to say that I wasn't actually, even though the title was one of scribe, it would be more accurate to describe what we did as being magim. So we corrected or fixed this Sfarim. We didn't actually write them, which requires much less artistic flair. I think it's also interesting to note that the laws that people generally think they know about scribal work didn't necessarily apply there. So we didn't use, for example, a kulmus, which is the quill made out of a feather, which generally speaking, a scribe probably should do. And all of these leniencies were done in an effort to make the Army's life easier.
For the Army, right?
Essentially, we were given a 6-week course, 9 hours a day in the Mishnah Beruah's relevant laws to how the letters are supposed to look, what the cloth is supposed to look like. And we were basically, by the big rabbis of in Israel, we were given sort of like all of the leniencies, one of which was to use an artist's pen. It's just easier because we're not that well trained. It's much easier to use. But though we did get to make our own kulmas for fun, like a field trip.
That's interesting. So the experience of being a scribe is different in the Israeli army because it's the army, and you can imagine most armies don't scribe that are part of their ranks. That's fascinating to think that that Israel has that, and that the Jewish army has a scribe as part of how it operates, which is fascinating. So Thea, how did you get drawn to healthcare? How did that become your interest? And tell us a little bit specifically about what you do and what you've done.
Sure. So hang on one second.
That's okay.
I'm letting her play with my phone in hopes that she'll stay quiet, but now my phone's
I know that routine well.
So I currently work for a company called Global Teletherapy, and the elevator pitch is that they provide therapy services to students in non-traditional school settings.
Right.
So we contract with therapists and we contract with schools and we match them up so that children receive therapy services.
That sounds like really important stuff right now in terms of teletherapy, really in vogue.
It's very relevant right now. Very true.
Wow. And because of all the mental health challenges going on as well. And what other healthcare jobs or interests have you had?
So my real passion is birth work. I'm a childbirth educator and a doula. Mm-hmm. And I've been to over 100 births.
Wow, oh my gosh. It's just so incredible to kind of have that experience of seeing creation and being a part of that, partnering with the Almighty, and it's just must be amazing experience.
Yeah, honestly, it's the best job ever. It's what I love to do, and I hope to go back to school for midwifery or possibly nurse practitioner. Not totally decided yet, but once Adam finishes school, it's my turn.
So when did you think to start? How old were you when you thought about having a profession like that?
I was 24 when I first learned about doulas and decided that I wanted to become a doula.
Right.
And did my first certification work then. And then I just thought it was so amazing and fascinating and wanted to know everything possible. So I became a Lamaze certified childbirth educator. And the
first experience a human being has in this world. That's a very powerful moment and place to be. So Adam, that kind of makes what you do look a little bit less interesting. No.
And if I told you about it, it would be even less interesting.
Right.
Let's keep the mystique.
Okay, but we'll go there. What drew you to law school? What do you like most about law school? What do you hope to accomplish with the law degree?
Okay, so I'll tread lightly here because I'm going to speak about my experience in the rabbinate and present company. No, I'm just kidding. You're totally different. I got into Rabbanos because I loved teaching. That was really what I liked to do. And fortunately or unfortunately, jobs that are in the rabbinate that are focused only on teaching are not necessarily remunerative enough to support a family, especially like 4 kids.
Right.
And
so in Canada and in Israel, you did a lot of education, right? And I know.
Yeah. So I was an assistant rabbi at a community center in Yerushalayim, and the job there essentially became for me only teaching. Teaching in people's houses, teaching in the shul, giving drushas when the rabbi wasn't there, being responsible.
Now, was that Rabbi Berzon? Was that?
That's right. Yeah. So Rabbi Berzon.
So just to tell everybody, so Adam and I, should I call you Adam or Rabbi? I don't know.
You can call me Adam. It's fine.
All right. So Adam and I share a Rebbe, Rabbi Azaria Berzon. And Adam had the good fortune of working with Rabbi Berzon in Israel before coming back to America.
Right. And so, I loved the teaching. And when I took the job as a rabbi in Toronto, because the responsibilities were so much greater than that, it didn't leave that much time for teaching. The community essentially didn't exist yet. And there was a lot of community building, fundraising, and all of the responsibilities.
Downtown, right? A very, very expensive area.
Yeah, and it's not an area where most of I guess what you would call the interested Jews live. So to populate a lot of the events required bringing people from across town.
Mm-hmm.
And that, as you can imagine, requires a lot of effort. And so it just wasn't, it's a wonderful job. It's holy work. It isn't really the work I was interested in doing.
Right.
And
that being in that area lent itself to, part of your experience. In other words, and what is your opinion in general? Maybe this is a separate session, but going from Toronto to Virginia is a big jump. And would you say that being in a very expensive area has challenges with regards to peace of mind, as opposed to a less expensive area such as Virginia, or I should say Richmond, Virginia?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, it's not, I think that it's probably one of the more dangerous spiritual pitfalls to be wary of. One of the more dangerous ones is affluence.
Mm-hmm.
I think that I think it's very difficult to strike a balance between material wealth and righteousness. There are plenty of people who do it in Toronto, especially, but it's hard. And it's doing that kind of work in Toronto is very hard. I had mentors up there who basically said, you have to be prepared. I expressed to them that I wasn't that interested in running around and chasing money all the time. And they essentially said, well, to be frank, this is probably not the right community then, because everything is it requires so much maintenance and so much.
You like the teaching part of it. So maybe share with some people what you like to learn the most, or what you like to teach about. What are some experiences or classes or courses that you've given in Canada or Israel that you look back on fondly, or even here in Richmond? I know you've done some teaching. What is the genre or subject that you like to delve into the most?
Yeah, that's probably evolved a lot. I think that, I like Jewish history has gone through various epochs. So have I. I'm like a microcosm of that. We probably all are. So for example, in Baca with Rabbi Berzon, I became sort of like the Hasidus guy.
Mm-hmm.
And that was, what I was very passionate about, learning about, what I would say is the more applied, maybe psychological aspects of Kabbalah and Jewish mysticism. But I think, as I've gone through law school and I've sort of broadened my interests and horizons, I think that's probably evolving, or at least that is being incorporated into what I would maybe call a broader interest in, Jewish thought in general, trying to integrate Judaism into, something like that.
Okay.
Even those aspects of halacha as well, I think.
Right. Now, Thea, did you do any teaching at all as well when you were in Toronto or Yerushalayim?
Yeah, very little in Toronto. I did teach some like women's health and Torah themed classes.
Yeah.
And same thing in Israel.
Okay. Did you have a topic that you like to teach, or any experiences that you look back on fondly in terms of students that you met, or subjects that you really were able to delve into?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, a lot of the opportunities I had to teach Torah concepts came through being a birth educator and a doula. So they were really significant moments in people's lives, and I was able to give a different perspective and deep meaning to this already very impactful period of their lives. And it's a really intimate way to get to know people very quickly.
Is there an insight, or is there a specific kind of thought or idea or philosophy that you learned from being a doula, to kind of connecting it to your Judaism, kind of connecting it to parenthood? Is it like a theme that kind of runs through these different areas, these different interests, these parts of your life that you can think of that you'd want to share?
Definitely. I think that a common vein that runs through all Judaism, childbirth and parenting, is actually it's a Jewish concept, but has gained popularity in recent years under the name mindfulness. I think that mindfulness is very applicable in all of those areas and makes people really take it back to the source, understand where things come from, really recognizing just how much we depend on Hashem in these situations. And mindfulness is also a fantastic tool to have like internal calm and
so like saying brachos and having specific kinds of rules that kind of permeate the different parts of your life. So that seems to be a part of it. Okay. And so Adam, have you learned anything from law school that you feel like makes you a better father? I know that's a strange question, but is there anything that you feel like you've picked up professionally that kind of, maybe you should just, Adam, maybe just tell us, because people don't know, what are your children's names and what are they up to? And then you can answer the question.
Sure. Yeah, we have 4 daughters. Simi is 7. Yaeli is 6. Zoe is 4. And Adele is 1.5.
Show them
That's
the
right.
behind you.
What's that?
That's them.
Oh, there you go. Perfect. I got it.
That's them about a year ago, I think. Maybe a year-ish ago. Have I learned anything in law school that made me a better parent? I don't know about that, but I will say that being a parent made me a better law student.
That's fascinating.
Yeah, well, or maybe just having a family in general, but I think having kids, I think that having an abundance of time might make it hard for other students to focus on what's important. Whereas I have a much smaller window in which to fit all of the stuff that I have to do. So I really have to, I have to spend some time prioritizing. And because of that, I feel like I've maybe tapped into the law school system a little bit more than some other people who are trying to digest everything.
Now,
which is probably good for practice.
I have to ask you, Thea is not from Virginia. You are a Virginian. It seems like it's a little bit 2 different worlds. The South, Southern Jewish community, and let's say whether it's Pennsylvania, where I know, Thea, you said you spent some time in California. California is not Virginia. Pennsylvania is not Virginia. So in terms of expectations and needing to mesh or blend these 2 worlds, what is that like in terms of taking a Southerner and a non-Southerner? Thea, it looks like you're acknowledging some accuracy to that.
I would say that, Richmond is totally, totally different from my experience in California and Israel. The town I grew up in, Pennsylvania, it actually looks and feels a lot like Richmond. A lot of brick houses, suburban-ish feel.
Yeah.
Suburbish, I like that.
Yeah, that's good. I know I'm from Allentown, so I actually understand what you mean. Different people, but similar kind of feel.
Yeah, definitely. I've spent a lot of time in Allentown, and Westchester is a lot like Allentown. And but I will say there's definitely differences living in the North and the South. Like there's a lot of Southern personalities here that I love. I love people's accents. I think it moves a little slower. We're only like 5 hours south, but I think life moves slower here, and I really like it.
That's cool. That's cool. So Adam, did you have to make adjustments on any Southern things that you needed to kind of educate or bring along the family or Thea on?
I don't know. I mean, my dad's from the Bronx, so
Classic Jewish story.
It's not like heavy Southern inculcation going on. So, and to be fair, I've been gone for a very long time, but yeah, I think the biggest hurdle is probably not unique to Richmond. Like if anyone in this similar scenario where one spouse is from the area is just, there's a familiarity and a comfort that you sort of drive around with and walk around with. And,
yeah, I kind of have that feel. It's a very nice pace based on the other places that I've been to. So one final question for both of you. So, I guess, what's your favorite thing about the shul? What's your favorite thing about Beth Israel? What did you like about it when you came in? I guess it's been 2 or 3 years now. I guess you can correct me on that. But Thea, we'll start with you.
Okay, so I love that we are a growing community, but still small enough to really have one community shul and one community day school. And I think that is really unique and special. And I think it pushes the community. It pushes the community to be more, like we were saying before, just open and accepting. And I think it's a really good learning experience for our kids to have interactions with diverse types of Jews. And I also really loved that right when I got here, it was so easy to make friends. There's a really, really good group of young families, and it was just instant. It did not take any effort, and it was great.
Very nice, very nice. Adam, anything to add to that there?
I mean, I think those are probably the main points, I guess. Yeah, the only thing I would add is that I'm not unique in being from here, leaving for a long time, and then coming back. It seems actually like a fairly common thing around here, which
people see
probably
thing and come back to it, right?
Yeah, I think it speaks to a lot of the redeeming qualities that we've been speaking about. My favorite thing about the shul, other than that, is probably the rabbi. That's really that's the biggest.
We might have to edit that out, or I might have to increase the amount of money paying you for your time here. But thank you both very much for your time, and hopefully we all get to know each other, even though we're a little bit more disconnected than we would like. And I speak for the audience here when saying appreciate getting to know you, both of you and your families, and look forward when we can all get together more often back in person. So thank you all very much.